Guys, it's Libby, and I'm going to be talking about vaccination and Edward Jenner today. Until the late 1700s, diseases spread easily, and people did not know many ways to stop their spread. Edward Jenner was born in 1749, and he is famous for his role in vaccinating people against smallpox. In the 1700s, smallpox was one of the most fatal diseases in the world. Smallpox was very contagious. It spread through coughing, sneezing, or physical contact, and its symptoms were a fever, headache, rash, or blisters filled with pus. 30% of people who got smallpox died, and those who survived were often blind or had very deep scars. The existing way to treat smallpox was inoculation. It was first brought to Britain by Lady Mary Wortley Montagu, who observed it in Turkey. Inoculation involved putting pus from a person with a mild form of smallpox into a cut of a healthy person's body. People believed this gave them resistance. Inoculation was popular in the 1700s with aristocrats. Many people did not get inoculated for religious reasons. They thought that it interfered with God's will. The inoculation dose could be too big and kill the patient. People who had been inoculated could still pass smallpox on to other people, and inoculation was a treatment that only rich people could afford. So to look back over the symptoms of smallpox, we know that there are a fever, a headache, a rash, and blisters filled with pus. And the problems that were faced with inoculation were that many people opposed to it for religious reasons. The dose could be too big and kill the patient. People who had been inoculated could still pass it on, and it was a treatment that only rich people could afford. The work of Edward Jenner. So Edward Jenner was a country doctor. He thought that the milkmaid did not get smallpox, but did catch a milder disease called cowpox. He tested this theory scientifically, and it seemed to be correct. Testing his theory, Jenner thought that people who had cowpox were immune to smallpox. Jenner gave an 8-year-old boy, James Phipps, cowpox, before injecting him with smallpox. James Phipps didn't catch smallpox. Jenner tested this on 16 more patients and concluded that cowpox was an effective vaccination against smallpox. He published his research in 1798. Religious opposition. Some people in the church thought that vaccination wasn't natural and should not be done. The level of opposition is seen by the formation of the Anti-Compulsory Vaccination League in 1866. This was 13 years after the vaccination was made compulsory. Incentives and lack of understanding. Publishing his discovery in 1798, Jenner faced serious opposition. He faced criticism because he could not explain why the vaccination worked. Many doctors did not wish to use the vaccination because they profited or made money from the smallpox inoculation. Jenner was not part of the clique of fashionable doctors in London, and for this reason he was excluded from academic favour. Poor application of vaccination. Attempts to replicate the experiment failed. Although this was because of contaminated equipment, they believed Jenner was wrong. And the role of the government. Despite all this opposition, the vaccination came to be accepted. The vaccination was less dangerous than the traditional smallpox inoculation, and gaining the favour of the royal family helped sway popular opinion. Parliament gave Jenner £10,000 to further his research in 1802. By 1853, the vaccination was made compulsory under law. So, to recap what we've learned about Edward Jenner, he was a country doctor. Many doctors did not wish to use the vaccination because they profited from the smallpox inoculation, and he faced criticism because he could not explain why the vaccination worked. Also, when the others repeated the experiment, they found that it failed because they weren't replicating it properly. So to recap on inoculation, inoculation was used to treat smallpox before Jenner discovered vaccines. It involved putting pus from a person with a mild form of smallpox into a cut into a healthy person's body in order to give resistance. So to recap on smallpox again, we know that those who survived were often blind or had very deep scars. We know that in the 1900s, smallpox was one of the most fatal diseases in the world, and that it was also very contagious. In the 1700s, it was one of the most fatal diseases, sorry, not the 1900s. So the acceptance of the vaccination although it had a lot of opposition, it was eventually accepted by the government. So in 1853, it was made compulsory under law. Parliament gave Jenner £10,000 to further his research. It was also less dangerous than traditional inoculation, and it gained favour by the royal family. Okay, so that's all with vaccination and Edward Jenner. Thank you very much for listening.